cheating on a wedding anniversary. Stacy walked into the bar with a sigh. It hadn't been a good night, and she almost turned around to go home. Home. The word used to have a different meaning. Now it had changed. She had crossed an invisible line and knew she couldn't go back. It all happened because of that very Congress last year in Philadelphia. She didn't want to go. She wanted to stay home with her husband Bill, but her boss insisted that she represent the company this time too. She begged him to cancel, reminding him of a series of previous events that had disrupted plans that were very important to her family. It wasn't fair that it was becoming her fault. First, she had to stay home for a weekend last June, even though it was their daughter's wedding days. Then a September conference in Cleveland prevented a trip to Maui that her husband had been planning for a whole year as a 35th birthday present for both of them. Then there was the October sales meeting in Dallas. Then Bill had just broken his arm and she asked to stay home to help him cope. And now the trip to Philadelphia fell on their anniversary. The boss only raised an eyebrow when she asked her to excuse her and send someone else to Congress. She took the hint and went on a business trip. Stacy ordered her favorite margarita cocktail and looked around the bar for prospects. Too old, too fat, too bald, too in love with the woman she was with. She sighed again. Maybe things would get better after all. It would be a shame to go through all the trouble of getting changed, fixing her hair and makeup, and then spend the night alone. She always missed Bill's company when she was on the road, and her thoughts returned to Philadelphia. She went to the conference. She represented her company well and signed some new clients. Stacy smirked, remembering how she felt knowing she would get a solid commission after the convention. She wanted to celebrate her successful business trip. Immediately she called Bill, but when she didn't get an answer, she remembered that he had gone to their son's college to visit him for the weekend. She had to celebrate alone in the bar of her hotel, but she wasn't alone for long. His name was Alexander. Xander, to be exact. She, however, remembered him as Philadelphia. She was confused when they met. He had asked to join her at her table, but she hadn't immediately agreed. He was polite and charming, and gradually she relaxed and began to flirt with him as best she could. He, on the other hand, took her behavior for granted. After dinner, he walked her to her room. She tried to say goodbye, but he blatantly informed her that he was going to spend the coming night with her. Her ostentatious display of her wedding ring didn't stop him. Her claims that she had never done this before didn't stop him. Her exhortations that she could not do this to her husband were met with indifference by him. Her concession to his determination was accompanied by the condition that he would only stay for a short time. Once in her suite, he put his arms around her and cuddled her. She relaxed in his embrace, secretly remembering her husband's gentle touches. She had celebrated her success with a handsome and obviously virile stranger the night before her anniversary, but she couldn't think of anything but Bill yet. Her lover had no idea of her melancholy. He quickly removed the clothes from both of them, and Stacy's thoughts of Bill faded into oblivion. What Philadelphia lacked in grace, he made up for in physicality. Stacy found herself losing her sense of reality and getting lost in the swelling sensual feast she felt. The man's musky odor engulfed her. Then he slept with her. Philadelphia was insatiable. Each time he came into action so quickly that Stacy wasn't sure if he would ever stop sleeping with her. It wasn't until somewhere in the wee hours of the morning that she was able to fall asleep, and a faint thought flashed through her mind. Midnight has passed. Today is our anniversary. She woke up and shuddered, remembering that she had to call Bill. Philadelphia was sound asleep, snoring softly beside her. She couldn't bring herself to talk to Bill in the presence of her lover. She should have called her husband in the morning, but she had overslept. Listening to herself, Stacy realized that she woke up to the sensation of another man snuggling against her. Shuddering, she pulled away and asked the man to leave. "But last night was wonderful," objected the lover. "Let me love you today. Wait, I'll call the food and drink delivery service to the room and order dinner. You'll feel better after you eat." "Lunch? What time is it? Shit. I slept in till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I gotta call Bill, and you have to leave. You can't just kick me out." She always hated whiners, even naked whiners with attractive bodies. She explicitly informed him that she had offered only a quick appetizer the evening before, and had kept that promise. and now it was time for him to leave. When he finally left, she turned on her phone. Damn! 5 calls from Bill last night and after midnight. 12 calls this morning. The message he'd left at noon was followed by a simple text. Happy anniversary? She quickly typed a return message. Happy anniversary, darling. Can you talk now? No reply. She turned the phone sound off full blast and rushed into the shower. No answer. She quickly washed off the traces of last night's debauchery and wiped herself off, looking at the text screen. No answer. She brushed her teeth, then tidied her hair, threw on her clothes, and rushed downstairs to meet her potential clients. The late rise had cost her 2 of those prospects. While she slept, exhausted from the aftermath of the evening at the bar, 2 potential candidates had contacted a competitor. Worse, the conference was closing after the morning sessions. Who knows how many additional contracts she could have negotiated. She still had enough energy to make the trip a success, but no, it wasn't. She'd stumbled with Bill. He liked to wish her happy birthday, happy Christmas, even the 4th of July at exactly midnight. What must he be thinking right now? No answer. He hadn't responded once to her text within an hour, and there had been 2. Frustrated, she packed her things and joined the exodus of conference attendees onto buses bound for the airport. She tried calling again. Again she tried texting, but there was no response from her husband. Suddenly, Stacy realized that her marriage might not survive and felt the weight of guilt fall on her shoulders. She arrived at the airport only to find out that there were delays nationwide due to a storm in the south. Her plane had been stuck on the runway in Tampa, waiting for the strong winds to subside before continuing on, first to Charlotte and then already to Philadelphia, from where she was to fly home to Boston. Message after message, call after call. She longed to hear Bill's cheerful voice congratulating her on her anniversary. Finally, defeated, she found herself at the bar, with the only desire to drown her bad mood in a little whiskey and a lot of regret. As soon as she was served, she felt someone's presence and noticed some man sliding onto the stool next to her at the tiny cocktail table. Before she could lift her head, his hand slid a small box in front of her. She looked up and saw her husband's smiling eyes. In the box was a beautiful locket with their wedding photo and an inscription that read, "Forever." Happy anniversary, Stace. Amazed that he was here, she hugged him, feeling the weight of guilt begin to fade. Turns out Bill had heard about the storm from the news early that morning, and when flight delays were announced, he'd taken the fast train southbound from Boston. I knew there was a good chance I'd miss you, especially if the train was late and your plane wasn't delayed. But I thought I could call you before you boarded if it got that bad. But the train was fast, and I was in a cab 5 minutes after we arrived at the station. So, what do you say to spending our anniversary weekend here in Philly? I have reservations for dinner and a room at a cute little boutique hotel downtown. Unless, of course, you'd rather spend the day in an airport bar. How'd you find me? I bought a ticket to join you on your flight. It got me through the security area, and since I only have a small backpack out of my luggage, it didn't take long. I then turned on Friend Finder on my phone, and it pointed to you at the bar. Your phone was... Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. After calling you all night, I had a couple things to do at work before I left the house. So I turned it off. I had to get to the airport by car so we could drive home when we got back. Then I had to get to South Station where I got on the train. I spent the entire train ride with my iPad, so I didn't even think about my phone. I didn't realize it was off until I got to the airport. Sorry. He didn't ask directly, but made it clear that he didn't know why she hadn't answered his texts and calls last night. The guilt returned, and Stacy decided that something like that would never happen again, and that she would forever be the perfect wife for Bill. And she had been. Before Chicago. Chicago was a lot lower than Philadelphia. He was a brash Italian who made a complicated deal with her one afternoon, 6 months after Stacy and Bill's anniversary. Chicago was able to break her favorability that night, too, and he loved her all night long. What he lacked in finesse, even compared to Philly, he made up for in energy and recovery time. It all started at a meeting when they were negotiating a new sales contract. He and Stacy were the lead negotiators from their respective companies, and the negotiations were very contentious. The Chicago company was unhappy with the delays in deliveries caused by the strike at the central manufacturing plant. Stacy's company was unhappy with payment delays. They both knew they depended on each other to want to satisfy the demands of their corporate leaders, so what happened next was a foregone conclusion. After a week of wrangling over a very complicated contract, both parties finally agreed to all the terms. Breathing a sigh of relief, Stacy apologized, saying she needed to call her legal department, and took the opportunity to visit the ladies' room. Chicago followed her discreetly. Slipping behind her into the ladies' room, he locked the door behind him and pressed Stacy against the sink counter. The desire was mutual. Stacy wrapped her long legs around his waist as he pulled his pants down. Finished, they dressed without saying a word to each other and went back to the meeting. His management was unhappy with the terms. They were going to cancel the agreement, but when Stacy got up to leave, gave in. She took a chance and told her opponents she'd had enough. "I feel dirty and insulted by this whole procedure. I'm off to my room to clean up and plan to treat myself to a lovely dinner. I leave for the airport at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I'll be at breakfast at 8 o'clock. You can meet me there with a last chance offer, but don't waste my time. The offer has to be serious." So it was. She smiled when Chicago shyly approached her that morning with an offer that turned out to be a very good deal. She got a nice bonus, added greatly to her reputation, and became Chicago's mistress. St. Louis was a stocky man. He was handsome and had become a valued client before she even slept with him. She had time to see Philadelphia one more time on a business trip and 2 more times in Chicago before she met Denver. Denver took her to his home where they were served dinner by his beautiful wife. Before dinner, he signed her best contract of the year. Just when she believed it was a legitimate business meeting, albeit at a client's home, he ordered his petite wife to undress and serve his guest. Stacy felt uncomfortable as the lovely woman gave her a massage. The massage moved to the bedroom where his wife undressed Stacy, while her husband watched from a comfortable chair with a brandy in his hand. Stacy had time to add notches on her bed for San Diego, Dallas, and Miami before reality intervened. She was in Philadelphia again, and due to a conference delay, she had to work on her birthday. Deja vu began when she realized she had missed her husband's call again on the night of the special event. It was 6 a.m. the day after her birthday, and she was finally able to call him back. He immediately went straight to voicemail, even though he was always up and working out by this time each day. She tried calling again at 7 o'clock. That was the time he usually sat down to breakfast, but again it was immediately switched to voicemail. She cursed and looked at her call and message history. Bill had called and texted the day before until 8 p.m., and then, surprisingly, for some reason, he stopped. She ordered food and drink delivery to the room and woke Philly from a very deep sleep. She admired his lean physique, and then started thinking about how bad it looked compared to Bill's body. She thought about each of the lovers she had made over the past year, and thought about how bad they looked compared to the man who was waiting for her at home. She went down to breakfast with Philadelphia under her arm. He kissed her passionately in the elevator, and Stacy felt a surge of lust and pride when she saw the multitude of people below watching them through the glass walls of the elevator car. Still groping her supple body, her lover hovered over her as she led him into the breakfast cafe. There, at a table positioned so that she was sure he could see everything that was happening to her, both in the elevator and on the way to the cafe, sat Bill. Her heart stopped. Bill, the only man who truly loved her, who was better than anyone she knew. Her husband himself had witnessed her infidelity firsthand, as they say. His blue eyes pierced through her. Philadelphia sensed what was wrong and quietly slipped away. Stacy wasn't afraid of Bill. He would never hurt her. He didn't need to do that. He just stood up, tossed a 20 on the table, and walked out of the cafe without a word. She realized it was over. When she got home that afternoon, Bill was gone. His things had been put away, and there was no trace of him except for his wedding ring on the pillow. She was alone, and she was suddenly cold. She was home, but without Bill, home wasn't home. He had left without a word. She heard nothing from his lawyer. She hadn't heard anything from his friends. There were no calls or texts. Bill didn't respond to any contact from her. She traded him for a year of dates where she compared what she had to what she had at home. She had Bill. He was the best. And he was gone. Stacy continued to search for her husband. Every night she went out on the street. She went to the seedy bars. She went to fancy clubs. She joined AA, even though she never drank just to pick up guys. It was getting evening. Stacy walked into the bar with a sigh. It hadn't been a good night, and she almost turned around to go home. Home. The word used to have a different meaning. Now it had changed. She had crossed an invisible line, and she knew she couldn't go back. The end.